Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, so today we are diving into a really fascinating origin story. To actually understand the modern tech world we live in, we've got to rewind all the way back to a crippling institutional paradox at post-World War II Stanford University. At the time, the whole peninsula was just absolutely vibrating with raw engineering talent. But the university itself was facing a total existential crisis. It was land-rich, but dangerously cash-poor. They literally didn't have the money to keep the lights on or fund real research.
8,180. That staggering number is the exact acreage of the Palo Alto stock farm that railroad tycoon Leland Stanford and his wife Jane left to the university in their 1885 founding grant. Now, here's the massive catch. Under a strict, absolutely non-negotiable legal covenant, this huge asset was strictly forbidden from ever being sold. No way around it. They had an ocean of land but couldn't liquidate a single inch.
And that brings us to this number, a big, fat zero. That was the liquid cash yield generated by this legally locked up land. People literally nicknamed it the fallow pasture. And it was leaving the school dangerously broke compared to their rich East Coast Ivy League rivals. I mean, they couldn't fund competitive faculty salaries, let alone build modern physics labs.
So you're probably asking yourself the same question they did. How on earth do you monetize forbidden land? Well, in 1951, engineering dean Frederick Terman and university president Wallace Stirling engineered an audacious, almost heist-like solution. They found a brilliant loophole to permanently flip this restriction on its head, turning a dead pasture into a thriving corporate sanctuary.
Let's map out our explainer today by breaking down this master blueprint. We'll hit 1. The Stanford land paradox. 2. Inventing the spatial loop. 3. Architecture of the workplace. 4. The ultimate talent fortress. And finally 5. The modern AI continuum. We're going to trace the 5 components of this ultimate innovation engine.
Starting with Part 1, the Stanford land paradox. Let's look at the existential threat of that empty pasture land and the stroke of macroeconomic genius that completely transformed it.
To get around that legal ban on selling, Terman just bypassed the restriction altogether. He invented the Stanford Industrial Park. Instead of selling the land, he issued 99-year commercial leases. But he didn't just lease to anyone who wanted space. Not at all. He acted as an incredibly strict gatekeeper. These leases were granted exclusively to clean, high-tech electronics and aerospace companies who explicitly committed to integrating with Stanford's curriculum. He was basically trapping global technology directly onto Stanford's property.
Moving on to Part 2, inventing the spatial loop. This is where we see how this blueprint completely shattered the historic separation between academia and industry.
You know, for centuries, the elite university was this sanctuary of pure theory, right? A strict brick wall totally separated the scholar from the merchant. Corporate labs were stuck far away in smoggy urban centers, while university researchers were hidden in cloistered academic halls. But Terman's counter-thesis was that innovation absolutely requires geographic density. So he took that geographic chasm of the old segmented model and replaced it with the frictionless walkway of the Stanford matrix.
And in 1951, the park's anchor tenant Varian Associates validated this exact 3-step continuous engine. Terman knew exactly what he was doing. He absolutely did not want steel mills or chemical plants polluting the campus. Instead, he engineered a closed-loop system where talent, commercial IP generation, and a financial capital recycler just constantly fed directly back into each other.
Varian was basically the perfect fit for this. They had just commercialized the Claystron tube, the microwave vacuum tube that gave the Allies radar superiority in World War II. They needed space to scale up for the Cold War, so they bypassed heavy manufacturing and built a low-slung modernist laboratory right on El Camino Real, directly bordering the university. By channeling their IP to commercial markets and funneling that premium 99-year lease rent right back to fund Stanford faculty chairs, Varian basically wrote the physical rules for modern knowledge economies. It was the ultimate win-win.
That brings us to Part 3, architecture of the workplace. Terman's master blueprint went way beyond finance and real estate. It actually triggered a profound revolution in the physical architecture of the workplace itself. Think about what things looked like before the 1950s. Corporate R&D lived in East Coast vertical factories. We're talking dark, noisy, militaristic brick towers where executives sat up high in plush top-floor suites, completely segregated from the assembly floors down below. The Stanford Industrial Park pioneered the exact opposite, the suburban horizontal lab campus. These were stunning, sunlit, egalitarian glass and steel pavilions seamlessly blended right into the rolling California landscape.
But here's the thing, these horizontal structures weren't just about looking cool. They were quite literally engineered serendipity machines. The single-story open layouts allowed companies to dynamically reroute heavy electrical conduits and install advanced air filtration systems for clean rooms. But maybe more importantly, it totally dismantled traditional corporate hierarchy. Executives, scientists, and technicians all shared the exact same spaces. It forced unsiloed technical conversations. Imagine an engineer eating lunch out on an open patio, suddenly crossing paths with a Stanford physics professor. That kind of spontaneous intellectual cross-pollination, that is exactly what sparked so many massive startup spin-offs.
Which leads us into part 4, the ultimate talent fortress. Because having physical space and pretty architecture just wasn't enough. Terman needed a real intellectual fortress to protect his local cash-poor startups from the massive financial gravity of those East Coast monopolies. To solve this problem, he created the Honors Cooperative Program in 1954. This brilliant setup allowed full-time corporate engineers working inside the industrial park to actually attend Stanford graduate seminars part-time. And the absolute genius catch here? Their corporate employers paid double tuition directly to the university to subsidize Stanford's own research labs. This financial educational pipeline became an uncopyable anti-brain drain fortress that just continuously recycled the sharpest technical minds on the planet, right there in Palo Alto.
This exact setup became the ultimate recruitment weapon. Obviously, a small local startup couldn't even come close to matching the massive salaries of corporate giants like RCA or General Electric. But they could look at a top-tier MIT graduate and make this pitch. Hey, come work for us inside the Stanford Industrial Park. We will give you equity, and we will fully fund your Stanford Masters while you work. Boom! It empowered scrappy startups to out-hire the massive giants, locking all that brilliant talent into the local ecosystem for years to come.
And finally, part 5, the modern AI continuum. This is the grand finale, tracing how that exact 1951 blueprint is the same unbroken spatial loop driving our technology landscape right now, today. If we look at the timeline, from the microwave vacuum tubes of 1951 to Larry Page and Sergey Brin's search algorithm in 1998, straight into today's generative AI wave, the structural logic remains completely unchanged. Back in '98, Page and Brin didn't leave the area to launch Google. They patented their tech directly through Stanford, and Stanford leased that IP right back to the startup for equity. When Google inevitably scaled up, that equity turned into a massive windfall that flooded straight back into Stanford's endowment. The loop just kept turning.
Today, we're seeing this exact phenomenon play out with something called Area 27. Basically, this is the geographic migration of the generative AI brain trust. They're moving from the sprawling suburban corporate parks of the South Bay directly into the hyper-dense, highly walkable urban grid of San Francisco, specifically neighborhoods like the Mission District and Potrero Hill. Modern AI engineers demand the exact same density and cross-pollination dynamics that Terman engineered back in the 50s. It's the same system, just shifted slightly north up the peninsula.
Because even though the geography has shifted a little bit, that intellectual reactor core is still firmly rooted at Stanford. The unbroken SAIL pipeline, that's the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, is functioning exactly as Terman intended. Tech giants like OpenAI and Anthropic absolutely still rely on the Stanford AI Lab as their own private talent fountain. They are pulling top machine learning PhD researchers straight off the campus and dropping them right into urban development warehouses. It just perfectly proves this ecosystem's multi-generational grip and the absolute containment of local academic intellect.
So, whether you're looking at the clean, horizontal lab campus of 1951 that funded endowed chairs, or the gritty urban hacker warehouses of 2026 generating global platform hegemony, the system itself is identical. The key takeaway here is that land is not just a passive commodity to be liquidated. No, it is a self-reinforcing crucible, specifically designed to permanently anchor, contain, and monetize human intellect. Frederick Terman proved that by tearing down the literal and figurative walls of the traditional ivory tower, you can manufacture an economic engine capable of endless, automated regeneration.
The software code being compiled right now in San Francisco and the microchips being designed in Santa Clara are all traveling along the exact same highway that Terman paved 75 years ago. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. Understanding this explainer means realizing that the most absolute power belongs to those who possess the sheer audacity to physically trap talent. If an engineered spatial loop captured the global tech hegemony, what invisible abstractions are being frozen into the architecture of your city today? Thanks so much for exploring this fascinating blueprint with me. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll patch you in the next explainer.